Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Quantum Spirituality right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest is Dara McKinley. What are we going to be talking about today? Well, she says the truth is we all have something, someone or something to forgive, perhaps even ourselves. Forgiveness is a tough one. Very hard to even forgive anyone else, never mind ourselves. So she says we know it's good to forgive, but we might not know how to do it. In 2012, after facing a personal challenge that, with her extensive skills and education, couldn't resolve, Dara searched online for forgiveness, how to, and the education couldn't resolve. Forgiveness, missed the line there. Forgiveness and how to, and was only met with a lot of why. Why should one forgive? When a logic path came to her, and after completing it, she felt peaceful and for the first time free in 3 years. The empathy led her to dedicate herself to researching and teaching this powerful concept, helping others process stuck emotions, move forward with passion and clarity. She studied and worked in the realm of spirituality and health for over 3 decades, possesses a graduate degree in contemplative Buddhist psychology, and in 2012, a difficult life circumstances pointed her to forgiveness, where she realized that how many spoke prolifically about why one should forgive, no one actually knew how. Her background enabled her to successfully create and follow forgiveness path that worked, and within years that followed, the experience made her see some significant themes. And in particular, she saw how the mainstream forgiveness of understanding, pardoning, ceasing anger, having compassion, letting go, was obscuring the forgiveness path. And she also saw that people who identified as spiritual but not religious required a forgiveness path that was clear and logical. This inspired Dara to devote her personal life and understanding forgiveness infrastructure and making forgiveness a practical healing modality as it was always meant to be. I am loving this topic. Forgiveness, I think, is one of the first things that we really need to do. We can't go to self-love. We can't go to love of life or love of anything else if we've got this cloud of, a begrudgment, vengeance, or anger or upset towards anybody else. And I think one of the biggest things is that we might end up forgiving other people, but the forgiving of ourselves, I think, is the hard one. And no, there isn't much out there, kind of, oh, just let go, just do this. But how do you when something's got such a great hold on you? So welcome to the show, Dara.
Thank you. Thank you for the gracious introduction. I'm very happy to be here.
So facing that path and understanding there isn't much out there on forgiveness and knowing that this is a path that you had to take, um, how did you find the path to actually understanding what you had to go through, the how to in forgiveness?
Well, when I reached that moment, I had 2 decades of psychology and spirituality behind me.
Mm-hmm,
And when I realized that there was no clear how-to
mm-hmm,
on how to forgive, I was also in a desperate situation. I had a health issue and I had 2 young children, and I was very afraid by the health issue. And
mm,
I have this I guess it's a talent or a skill that when I hit rock bottom and my emotions are incredibly strong, that is when my intuition is the clearest.
mm,
And I think a lot of people might have that lovely skill. And so I had hit rock bottom. I was very, very afraid about what was happening with my health and my family. And I got the message to forgive.
mm,
So then I looked online, saw that there wasn't much there, and but I was determined because I really felt like that was the key to my health issue and to getting over what I needed to get over. And you kind of will do anything for your young kids, right?
Yes,
I
yes.
I would I kind of got placed into a perfect storm
Mm.
where I couldn't just, oh, let me, maybe next year
I'll
or
get back to you. Yeah.
yeah, or maybe this will just go away. Like I really had to walk the plank,
Mm,
essentially.
hmm.
So I had the skills, because of my previous education and life experience. And I began, so let's start with like how I define forgiveness. I define forgiveness as the ability to access and apply unconditional love.
Mm,
That's the first step. And the second step is to identify exactly what needs it.
mm,
And so in that moment, I thought, okay, I was wanting to forgive something that had happened to me 3 years prior. I needed to forgive something that happened to me 3 years prior. And for those 3 years, I just ruminated in wanting justice. I just
yes.
wanted some, force of lightning, something to like make
Mm,
the wrong right. And my
yeah.
and my mind was looping in this. And so I finally, when I reached that moment of like, wow, I need to figure this out, I thought, okay, so I have been wanting justice for 3 years. What is the opposite of that? This is what I've been doing for 3 years. If
Mm.
I did a complete 180, what is the 180 of that? And once I had that thought, that was my first step. And there are other steps after that, but so what would you say is the opposite of that?
Let it go.
Yes, but what if you can't do that, right? Because that's the situation that a lot
Yeah.
of people are in.
You have to kind of want to let it go. And you
Hmm.
have to understand that it is the unclenching. Because when we're holding on to something, everything about us is crunched up. And
Hmm.
it's all very well to say, let it go, but that means each finger has to pry open and,
Hmm.
take that breath and go, okay, no, I can't
Hmm.
do this anymore. I have to let it go. So I think the first thing is, I want to let it go.
Yeah.
And then what do you do in letting it go?
Right. So I think so. Right. Exactly. So I want to let it go. And so for me, what came to me in that moment when I said, what is the opposite of wanting justice? The opposite was what if I bless this with the highest love?
Mm, hmm.
And that was the first step.
Right.
Yeah. So
Putting it down to like we're all going to have experiences in life, and some experiences are going to be extremely unpleasant. But if we stay in that experience, in resentment, in anger, in bitterness, then we are reliving that experience all the time. And I think
right,
when we realize that, like um, whoever did me wrong doesn't care anymore, they're long gone. I'm doing this to myself now.
right.
So do I want to stay in that victimhood? Is there a way of getting justice? Or is this something that, for my own sake, I do have to let go and find that forgiveness and love within myself?
Right. But so I guess what I'm proposing out there is what if you don't have compassion?
Mm,
What if there is no compassion? What if there is no ability to let go? What if
hmm.
there is no ability to pardon?
Yes.
What if there is no ability to cease anger? These are all the
Yeah.
mainstream definitions.
Hmm.
I feel like they put the cart before the horse.
Mm, hmm.
So it's like one of the lovely things about, or one of my favorite things about blessing something with the highest love is that you don't have to do it.
Mm,
You just need
hmm.
to know how to access the highest love,
Open up. Hmm.
and you need to know how to apply it.
Yes.
So, there's so much doership about forgiveness. Have you heard of that term
No,
before?
I haven't
That
actually.
it's like that I am the one that like I need to have the compassion and I need to let go and
Hmm.
I need to figure this out. I need to do it. I need to be the bigger person. I need to somehow in the midst of all these strong emotions open up to, channel the greatest love through me. And what I realized was like, oh, actually, I don't need to do this. I need to delegate this. I need to delegate this to what can do it. So I'm not Christian, but obviously Christianity was the religion that brought forgiveness to the world or popularized forgiveness. And there's actually not that many stories about Jesus and forgiveness, but there's like a handful. But the most famous one is that he's being crucified
Yes.
and he looks up and says, "Forgive the people who are killing me, Father.
Hmm.
Yeah, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do."
Exactly. Yes.
And so, so many people cite that story because here he is in his final moments, walking his talk and, doing everything that he preached and taught, while he's in this immense amount of pain. And yes, like I think that it's an incredible story for all those reasons. But what I find so interesting about it is that he actually looked up and
Hmm.
said, "Can you please forgive them?
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
actually in a lot of pain right now.
Hmm.
I can't do it, but you
Mm.
can. So can
Mm.
you please?" He delegated.
Yes. Yes. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter what you believe in, God, universe, spirit, source, energy, universe. It doesn't really matter. It's just believing there is something that is bigger than you, that is more powerful than you, that
Right,
is more
right,
loving than you,
right,
because as humans, we're in kindergarten. We're having this, spiritual experience through the human experience here. And we're going to trip and make mistakes. That's part of our learning, part of
right,
our becoming.
right,
And if we kind of like, have you got me? Can you help me pick back up? I can't handle this one. Can you take the burden and
right,
and so that it's easier for me to digest or do what it is I need to do? But we unless I suppose you really are deep into religion where you know to give it up, surrender it, allow. But for a lot of people that are not in any particular religion or are not brought up with that, surrendering to a higher force, a higher energy, is sometimes, what are you talking about? What do you mean, give it up? To whom? Can I trust them?
right.
All of that.
Right,
And
right, right,
yeah,
right. Yes, great
yes.
point. Great point. So I was born a very spiritual being. I remember
Mhm.
feeling something that was greater than me from the
Yes.
moment I became conscious.
Yes.
And so for me, making that leap and delegating and accessing and applying unconditional love was not a huge leap.
Yeah.
I really just have had that experience from the gate.
Yeah.
However, I am very aware of what you're what you're pointing out right now is that a lot of people don't have this like
Mhm.
constant visceral experience of
This
something
direct line. Yeah.
else, right? This
Yeah.
direct line, right? So, well, and that's one of the first things I teach in the course is how to feel unconditional love in your body. Because if you're not feeling unconditional love
Mm.
in your body, then you're not going to know how to apply it, or
Right.
So,
Yes. Be the love you seek. Hmm.
right, right. So, however, you actually, for me, unconditional love is a very overt spiritual experience, but I actually think that people are experiencing unconditional love in different forms. So someone might feel unconditional love in their family system, and
Hmm.
someone might feel unconditional love about a passion that they have, and someone might feel unconditional love for nature,
Mm.
someone might pour themselves a cup of tea, sit in their favorite chair, and put their blanket over their lap
Hmm.
and feel a sense of peace and love. So it's like however it comes to you,
Hmm.
because I think it is pulsing through all of us in different channels. And so it's just a matter of finding like what is that thing that I
Hmm.
feel like an unconditional response to, that like I would actually do anything for, or that is just my favorite moment. And
Yes.
once you can find that moment, you can capture it. And it's like, oh, this is a thing that not only is it bringing me great feelings right now in this moment, I can actually use it.
Yes.
I can direct it towards things that I can use it as a medicinal element.
Mm. Clarity, right? It's that trust and that clarity and that deep breath. I know
Right.
what I know in this moment, and this is all I need to know.
Right.
And it's like when you get there, it's just remember how you got there and repeat. you know,
Right, right, right. Mm-hmm.
because when we trust, we're going to get frazzled.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody cuts you off in traffic, you just switch on the news and politics. Somewhere somebody's going to piss you off. And it's like, yeah, you're going to have a moment. We always say with emotions, spend your emotion. It's there indicating something. You're reacting to something, but don't become emotional over the emotions, which is what we're inclined to do. And I think it's like you call in to check and then take that deep breath. Where is your center? How do you go to your center?
Mm-hmm.
And can I interviewed a monk that would take people into Times Square and say
Mm-hmm.
how to be the mountain of peace amongst the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And we always talk about meditation being in silence and this and that, but no, we really need to know how to come
Mm-hmm.
back to center amongst the chaos.
Do you feel like you feel like you have a felt sense of unconditional love, or do you feel it like in certain circumstances, like you're obviously you have a passion project for this podcast,
Hmm.
like and
Yeah,
it keeps
12 years.
you
Yes, definitely.
or in nature
Yeah.
or with children, I don't know, like
Yes. Well, I mean, I've got two grandbabies here. I mean, how can you
uh-huh.
not, right?
Right.
And but trees, breeze, and water. They're my sanctuary. Right outside of me, I have abundant trees. And
Uh-huh.
just a kilometer away is the ocean, and we get
Mm-hmm.
a lot of breeze. And for me, life is about fluidity,
Mm-hmm.
keeping things moving. And I believe stagnancy is what
Mm-hmm.
causes illness and discontent and discombobulation
Mm-hmm.
and even anger. And I think that for me, things need to be in flow. And if I find myself not in flow, then I know I'm going to go down a road. I'm like you, was born spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
How come other people don't see all these entities around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of born where other people weren't going to get you
Mm-hmm.
because they just don't see what you see.
Mm-hmm.
That caused its own conflict, which I had to deal with as a human, right? Because I was more of a spiritual being, finding it difficult to be a human being. And then
Mm-hmm.
I went through the guilt of not fitting into everybody's ideal box. And I think a lot of people feel guilty for not living up to somebody else's expectation. But if we really look at that expectation, is it even realistic? Has it got anything to do with you? Or is it somebody else's ideation of you and it's not you?
Right. In our generation, it was very lonely to be born such a spiritual being.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very.
and you definitely it's a long road
Yes.
to know that you're normal.
But what is normal?
And not even, but like to know that you're normal and that you actually have immense gifts
Yes, yes.
to the world. But when our generation was so much about survival,
Yeah.
right? And being practical and logical
And fitting in.
and yeah, and going down the road that everybody's supposed to go. You go to
Mm.
school, you get an education, you get a job, right? And when you're
And then
having
2.2 kids in a fence. I'm still trying to
right,
work out
right,
the 2.2
right,
kids.
yeah. So yeah, so when you have this immense spiritual connection and you think in it differently and you look at things differently, it is definitely like I didn't feel like, oh, there's actually nothing wrong with me.
Mm-mm.
I have these immense spiritual gifts until I found the Naropa Institute, because
Mm.
it was a graduate program that it was a spiritual graduate program. I didn't even know that existed.
I know, I didn't know it still existed.
So I remember reading it and I didn't even know what Buddhism was at the
Mm.
time, but I was like, I'm going to go become a Buddhist because it feels like this is the one place that can affirm this experience that I have
Yes,
walking on this
yes.
planet. So anyway, I just wanted you to know I see you. It's definitely a long road and, I'm glad that you've arrived to where you arrived.
Yes, well, but it's a bumpy road, isn't it? And I think it's when you do get to that unconditional love, as Popeye says, I am what I am. Right.
Hmm.
And when you can go like, I always say I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm somebody's strong cup of black coffee, and you're going to get someone or you're not. You're
Hmm.
going to vibe with them or not. You're going to be on the same wavelength or you're not. Don't
Hmm.
beat yourself up if you're not.
Hmm.
And I think we've been conditioned in our upbringing is that we've got to be one size fits all for everybody. And I'm, always preaching, and I'm sure everybody who listens to my podcast knows, I hear this, everyone. What is your instrument? Discovery of your instrument, how to play it, be a soloist, play it beautifully, but how do you fit into the orchestra?
Mm-hmm.
And coming to the orchestra, each one brings their own strength, their own expertise, but they agree to play harmoniously together in order to
Right,
transcend,
right, right, right,
right?
right.
But we've got to know our own instrument first. And if we think, oh, I've got to fit into the orchestra, this and that, no, no, no. Know
Mm-hmm.
your own instrument, and then you will know how you fit in.
Right, right, right. And so spirituality, which is our instrument, right,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
is an incredibly important part of the wheel. Uh,
Yes.
because I mean, for many reasons, but one obvious one is because life knocks you down.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Life knocks you down, and the people who, you might have observed this also, but in terms of who survives life's hardships without becoming brittle and bitter,
Mm,
and all sorts of things, are typically people who have a very strong spiritual connection.
yeah. Yeah.
And so spirituality is, a kind of bringing this back to a felt sense of unconditional love, or wherever somebody does feel
Mm,
a sense of unconditional love, that's a medicinal element that
hmm.
we can use and apply in a very practical and healing way. And are you familiar with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor?
No.
So you might have heard of her. She's the Harvard neuroscientist who had a stroke, and she wrote a book, My Stroke of Insight.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the way she would describe people like you and I is
Hmm.
that we were born very developed on the right hemisphere of the brain,
Hmm.
where most people are not, I would say the masses are more, yeah, who even knows? Because
Right.
honestly, society is developing the left hemisphere of the
Mm,
brain,
hmm.
like, but only, right? So you can,
Only. No
yeah.
balance. Hmm.
Right, but people like you and I who were born very strong with the right hemisphere of the brain, she would say that, like, scientifically, that's why we have such a visceral spiritual experience from birth.
Yes.
Um, so the right hemisphere of the brain, imagination, creativity, intuition, are actually all the skills that I wouldn't say skills, all the facets that a person needs to bring together in symphony
Hmm.
to forgive.
Ah, yes, that makes absolute sense. Um, People are kind of looking for the rational and the logic. Well, it's very, very logic to step into love. It's very, very logic to step into compassion and caring and kindness, because those are the instruments that create the orchestra of love.
Right.
So I think that I want to go back to where you talked about your experience, your health experience in 2012. Of course, 2012, like 94 and 2012 were huge spiritual shifts and awakenings. And people kind of, you know, ordinary engineers and this and that were suddenly whacked over the head with the cosmic 2x4, and then they took a spiritual path. And at that time, no one to guide them. They became the guiders. Right.
Mhm.
In 2012, it was that awakening. This is when I started podcasting in
Oh, wow.
2012.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very epiphany year. Was it a year? I mean, you had to, for your children, I've got to get well, my kids. But what else did it give you in that year for yourself? What awakening or knowledge or redirect did it give you at that point? Yes, obviously it gave you your health back, but was there something else that opened up for you at that time?
So, interestingly enough, it didn't give me my health back.
Oh, you didn't. Okay. And actually, this is something that people don't understand. A lot of very highly spiritual people struggle with health. I do. I have all my life, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. It's true. Yeah. Um, so what it brought me at that time is the burden from this experience that I'd had 3 years previous
Mhm.
gone.
Yeah.
And I was truly carrying that burden for 3 long
Mhm.
years. So the
Day
fact,
and night.
yeah, so it was almost like the health issue was, it threw me into a very stormy sea, and
Mhm.
forgiveness gave me a boat.
Yes.
And so I still had to go through the stormy sea,
Hmm.
but now I wasn't, now I had support.
Yes.
And I wasn't the energy that I did have could be used towards developing my health and not be drained by
Hmm.
by the resonance of this difficult thing that happened to me 3 years previous. It also it very much showed me the logical mind versus what I call the divine mind, you know,
Hmm.
the left hemisphere versus the right hemisphere. Like when I stepped into forgiveness, because my logical mind, I say that logic is forgiveness's greatest obstacle.
Yeah.
Because when I decided, like, oh, I'm going to bless this situation with the highest love, my logical mind roared in objection.
What do you mean?
Right. And it was so clear to me for,
Yes.
prior to this, I'd actually been embedded with my logical mind. And so
Mm,
all of a sudden, when I said, oh, I'm going to go this way
mm.
instead, my logical mind shouted out to me like, oh, no, 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 no. And I
Connection.
saw it and I was able to like, I was like, oh my goodness, like you're this like voice that's been tormenting me.
Hmm.
And I'm from New York, so I can be very, to the point. And and I literally, and I turned and I was able, and I turned to it and I was like, enough.
Hmm.
I've had enough of you. Like,
Yeah.
I've been listening to you for 3 years and my life is just slid downhill.
Yes.
So I'm done
Yeah.
listening to you. And I'm actually going to try this out. And hey, if this is wrong, yeah, maybe I'll talk to you again. But I'm gonna try out like, what if I bless this situation with the highest love and see what happens. So I went into it as a researcher. Um, I feel it's interesting because I've dealt with that health issue. I even still have I even deal with some elements of it today. I have to be very careful with my health. I
Hmm.
can't eat processed foods. I have to be very strict with my diet and my rest and just take like amazing care of myself. But what's interesting is that because I have this health issue, I can't run around like the rest of society.
Can't run at all. And it's kind of like a lot of people don't understand. Well, if God's with you and Spirit's with you, why do you have all these health issues? And I kind of thought about it one time, and I thought my energy, my spiritual energy, was so high. I think it was resonating at a too high a volume for people to feel or to
Mhm,
hear. And I
mhm.
think in a lot of ways I was given illness to dampen that higher energy, to bring it down to a level where it actually could reach people and be of good.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Health issues essentialize ourselves.
Hmm.
They bring us to our essence.
Hmm.
So we can't go down paths
Yes.
that aren't good for us, or you like we have to be so discerning about how we use our energy. And I
Hmm.
have to say that as difficult as the health issue has been, it also gave me a tremendous amount of time to research and mull over forgiveness.
Hmm.
Whereas I
Exactly.
might have been like, I'm a very
Chasing something.
chasing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm very curious. I'm multi-passionate.
Hmm.
Like I could have done, so many things with my energy. But my body was like, nope. And so I actually have a dear friend who became a quadriplegic from a high school football accident.
Oh.
And so him and I talk about this. So he was, 100 times more passionate than I am, in my most passionate moment before this accident happened. So he was forced to go inside,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he thinks like had that not happened to him, and there's no like putting a bow on this or
Hmm.
saying like he till the day he dies he'll wish he had his body.
Hmm.
He would never trade it in, but he can't. He has to admit though that the limitations, he would have gone down a path of like military,
Mm.
um, and hunting, like just being like 100% man's man. And
Yes.
when
Physical. Physical.
right, very physical,
Mm.
very just conquering.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And so all of a sudden he was severed from that. And so he was forced to go inside and develop his feminine side. And he admits, he's like, I never would have done it
Yeah.
had I not been in this situation. And he ended up becoming an incredible artist. He was
Mm-hmm.
able to use his hands a little bit, and these beautiful, and you can tell these paintings come
Mm-hmm.
deepest place inside
Mm-hmm.
him. And so I just think that when we have physical limitations, it actually sets us up for inner work and to
Yeah.
really understand our inner world. And though we wish we could just kind of run around and be joyful and nonstop energy, there is a tremendous asset to being able to surf your inner world.
We're all here to serve one another. And like I said, I think that the energy was dampened for me because I was riding too high on the spiritual plane and I really wasn't being connected to the human one. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, the illness was given to have me connect to body, to
Mm-hmm.
actually understand what my purpose was here today. And
Mm-hmm.
and I think, there's this inside out job. I've interviewed, for 12 years and over 3,000 shows. And I've heard some horrific stories of what people have gone through, but they chose to go through it. They chose to go into discovery. They found their courage, their strength, their abilities, their meaningful purpose. And now the service that they are today, the inspiration, the skills, and the tools they have are an illumination for other people on that path of struggle. And every single one of them said, I would not begrudge that journey. That journey gave me who I am today, and who I am today is my soul truth.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
what we really would like, though, and I call that
Right.
the cosmic two by four, and the cosmic kind of gives us a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I'd like people to pay more attention to the nudge, nudge, wink, wink, rather than the cosmic two by four. But sometimes, we get chosen, and we get given no more than what we can handle. And
Mm-hmm.
then, just like with your research, it's okay, you've given this. What's the purpose for it? Now I need to research. What do I do with it? What
Mm-hmm.
is the purpose behind it? And for
Mm-hmm.
you, of course, forgiveness has become that platform, which is such a huge one, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there is anybody on this earth that hasn't had to face forgiving of self or forgiving of someone else.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. The Buddhists, the Buddha said life is suffering.
Mm,
And when you have never heard anyone say it so blatant
mm,
as he did, you initially, when I first heard that teaching, I remember being like, oh, wow, finally someone is saying what the deal is
yeah.
here. However, I'm not Buddhist, but I did, spend 6 years studying Buddhism. However, I actually think that, there's actually a more nuanced description of what actually happens to us here. And it's that, like, this realm is going to betray us in some way, and
Mm,
it's going to fail us in some way. And that's just the deal for all of us,
yeah.
and Buddhism would say old age, sickness, and death come for all of us. But even forget old age, sickness, and death,
Yes.
other trials, right? There's many other trials that we all need to face. And so it's like, so life is going to betray us, and it's like, can you heal
Yeah.
when after that happens? Can a person heal after that happens?
I also think it's kind of wording. Um, I've changed the suffering to struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I choose to suffer. I may struggle, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to suffer in the struggle. That's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, sometimes when we change the words around, they lose their, the impact, suffer. Oh, it's suffering. And it's struggle. Yeah, okay, it's a bit of a struggle, but I've got it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, very often we need to look at the words that we do say to ourselves, we say to other people, or we say to the universe,
Mm-hmm.
because they're picking up on that frequency, and every single word, every single letter has an energy. And I
Mm-hmm.
think if we change the wording, we're changing the energy
Mm-hmm.
around that wording, and then it becomes something more fortifying and supportive of us, rather than, oh, I give up, I'll just suffer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, right. It does have to depend with, well, so I actually think that, like, up until recently, and you might notice the enhancements or the conversation about healing has changed a lot in the last few years.
Yes.
And, um, again, our generation healing, emotional healing, or
What are you
let
talking about?
that was not on the table at all. And actually, my mother was a therapist. She's still alive, but she's retired now. So that
There was a
conversation
certain amount there, yeah.
circulate, yeah, a little bit in my house, but there was still like no practicality about it,
Mm.
We just go to a therapist and talk was essentially, but at least she had that. At least I had that in my household, that you can go to somebody and talk about something. Uh,
But with you, when going to a therapist, it always ended up them on the couch and me therapizing them every time.
Finding a good therapist is an incredible blessing,
Mhm.
Um, so so right now I love the fact that healing is having its place at the table.
Yes, it's been spoke about, been accepted, been embraced. Yes,
Yeah, and that we are regenerative beings.
yes.
And that the next generations, the future generations will grow up
Mm,
just knowing that,
yeah,
that like when the betrayals happen, when the disappointments happen, when the struggles happen, that they have a resource inside them, and that they have a boat that they can board
yes.
into as they go through the stormy sea.
Hmm.
Whereas our generation, we had to sit there and like,
Glug,
swim
glug, glug.
lives, right? Swim for our lives and just like hope it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Along come a whale and a dolphin to pick us up and carry us. Yes. Um, like how many times did we drown and feel like we came back to life, and it's like, how many deaths have we had in our life? So many, and
have
so
you
many
had
new beginnings.
have you had a radical healing experience where, like, or what has been your biggest one?
Um,
I'm sure you've had many.
yeah, I would say lots of little ones, no big ones, because nothing's ever been completely healed, except for that forgiveness of I am enough and who I am, and I
Hmm.
need to stop apologizing for not being enough for somebody else's expectation. I think
Hmm.
that was a big one for me that
Hmm.
became a healing modality.
No, that's huge. I
Hmm.
mean, we almost the way the world is structured right now, it's
Mm.
basically a not enough machine, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
so when a person actually removes themselves
Mm,
from that message that's coming at us, especially social media, like I think
mm,
that, or the phone in general, I feel like
yes.
now we're holding a not enough machine in our
Yeah.
hands and looking at it all day long. And so when somebody steps out of that narrative and realizes, oh, wow, this narrative is totally false.
Hmm.
Like I'm actually like an immeasurable being on this planet who's here to only listen to my soul and what my soul directs me to do. And my soul
That's
directs
it.
me to service. My soul directs me
Yes.
to, pick apples, whatever it is, like
And
that's
it's,
purpose.
the no comparison and the no competing. When you drop the comparison, I
Oh,
need to be
right,
like someone else, or I need to compete
right,
with
right,
someone else.
right.
And I again back to Popeye, I am what I am. I
Right.
am the instrument I am. Am I
Mm-hmm.
the whole orchestra? No, I'm not meant to be. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I will join an orchestra now and again, and we'll create wonderful music. But I am the instrument that I
Right,
am, and I'm enough doing that. And
right.
for me, especially, I'm turning 70 in a couple of months. And for me, growing up, it
Mm-hmm.
was always, I actually wrote my own book, actually, my own discovery of soul, that to grow up feeling that you'll never be enough
Mm-hmm.
has one negative thing to it, but on the other side of it, nobody expects you to ever achieve anything. So when you do, it's a surprise. So if
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people that are growing up expected to achieve, they have
Mm-hmm.
straight A's, or they're going to the Olympics and da 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 da. And it's like, great to have that support behind them, but that expectation that you must excel, I think is also a burden. Is also feeling you're not enough unless you win, right?
Right. And that's just for a very specific portion of the population,
Hmm.
a very small portion of the population. Yeah, well, that's actually one of my like secondary interests is all the unique facets of the human soul.
Hmm.
Forgiveness is my top interest, but
Yeah.
I love I see how we all have these different facets, and our paths are completely unique, and they're all supposed to play out in different ways. And as a authority in a younger person's life, it's actually to help them trust that.
Yes. Listen. I
Mm-hmm.
always say with these shows, listen, learn, and apply. But, for
Mm-hmm.
me, is that when that soul is, when you surrender to the soul and you allow, that
Mm-hmm.
wisdom comes through. It
Right.
resonates with the heart, with
Mm-hmm.
passion and truth. It's
Mm-hmm.
given to the spirit in action. And the
Mm-hmm.
mind then knows what it needs to know in clarity, what it
Mm-hmm.
needs to know in the now. And
Right.
that, when I travel that way,
Mm-hmm.
wisdom to knowledge, not knowledge, because
Mm-hmm.
that's head knowledge, that's data knowledge, but wisdom to knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
I will never go wrong. I'll never make the wrong decision. If I
Mm-hmm.
come from the head of expectation and
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and what everybody else expects me to do, I guarantee I'll make mistakes because I
Mm-hmm.
haven't brought the intellect of the soul, the heart, and the spirit into the equation.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. And I think that's the future of spirituality. It's
Mm.
not about
Woo woo.
oh, yeah. It's not about the written word. It's
Mm.
not about believing something because someone told you to believe
Yeah.
it. It's truly about listening and discovering your own soul and placing that soul into service of, whatever it is that you declare, as again, it can be nature, it can be
Yes.
family, it can be a passion, but placing it in service to whatever you
Hmm.
feel like the universe wants you to place it in service to. And yeah, that's exciting to me,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that people are starting to realize that when you don't do that, life is brutal.
Yeah. It is. And, a lot of the reason why this particular genre is called quantum spirituality is
Yeah.
that scientists are beginning to understand through the understanding of opening up quantum physics, they're now
Hmm.
beginning to understand how to measure and
Hmm.
measuring people that live in a love vibration,
Hmm.
kindness, caring, compassion, loving vibration. They know people are actually living on a higher level of hertz, a higher frequency. When you're
Hmm.
in that frequency, you can't knowingly go and hurt someone else. To do so is to hurt yourself
Hmm.
because it's the hurting of collective. And they're beginning to understand that people who live spiritually is not living in a kumbaya, everything is pink and
No,
roses,
no, no,
is
no.
that they're actually tuned in to that higher energy, that higher power, that becomes their generator and
Hmm.
their compass
Hmm.
and their conviction and that passion that drives them forward no matter what. And they're
Right.
beginning to measure that. And that's so beautiful is that the logical science rational world is beginning to actually take notice. There is something here.
Right. Right. Yeah. Spiritual people are not without their intense struggles, right?
No.
Yeah, right. And I know a lot of people have that belief that
The
if you're
airy fairy,
spiritual,
yeah.
yeah, that
Mhm.
everything's gonna go okay.
Oh,
And
you're
that's
part of a cult.
yeah,
Right,
right.
yes. Mhm.
And that's not the deal here on earth.
No,
The deal here on earth is how do you take those moments and merge it
yes.
with, something higher.
And I think once we understand we're all here to contribute, we've all got to pay rent on this earth,
Right.
right? So we're all here. Our contribution is very much our rent. And
Hmm.
to be of service to other people is what fuels us, is
Hmm.
our meaningful purpose. And I think so many people, and especially amongst the younger, I've got three millennials children.
Hmm.
For my son-in-law. Well, actually, I've got a daughter-in-law coming up in a week, so we make five, all
Yeah.
millennials. And it's like they're, don't want to vote, they don't want to commit to any religion, they're constantly speaking.
Hmm.
What is life more than this? And they're in that journey. And then I think in the younger generation, the kids,
Hmm.
I produced a book this year called Our Forgotten Children, and
Hmm.
it's an anthology with 15 people contributing towards it of how the systems are so wrong in the raising of our children. We
Hmm.
take this beautiful essence where they are so heart and spirit. They
Hmm.
are so tuned in. They are
Hmm.
so divine. And then
Hmm.
we take them and conform them, restrict them, box them,
Hmm.
berate them,
Hmm.
belittle them. kill
Mm-hmm.
any form of creativity or connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then we
Right.
wonder why we have a problem in humanity, in society.
Right. Right. Right.
To
Yeah.
let those children who are have such automatic divine wisdom, let us learn from them. And let's keep that essence of that beautiful spirituality of what they are alive on their journey of life. Do
Right.
not let them conform to this old paradigm that has not worked for
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah. So like what I tell my kids is like, I'm on your team.
Hmm.
Like,
Yes.
and you're gonna mess up and you're gonna fall and but just know that I'm on your team.
Yep.
And I felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. And again,
Hmm.
like grew up in a very critical I was just definitely ridiculed for being such a sensitive
Hmm.
person and for being a
Hmm.
spiritual person. So and then I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? So
Yes.
until I hit my late 20s, which is normal. Like it's
Yes.
so normal to not know but what you want to do until your 20s or 30s, late 20s or 30s. And so, but the pressure I felt before finally everything clicked, or the wrongness that I carried around with me for not knowing what I wanted to do and having too much fun or being too free and partying. And so I just feel like, oh wow, that's actually just a completely normal thing for a
Exactly.
person to do. And I'm going to support my kids in being lost.
Yes. It's the
Like
journey
go
of being
lost.
found that becomes profound,
Right, right.
right?
Go get lost.
Yes.
Go get
Yes.
lost and
Yes.
figure it out. And
Make
you
make
have
mistakes.
time.
I'm
You
here
have
to help.
time.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
time. And one day it's all going to click. Because how could it even click unless you have really significant life experiences behind you?
Yes.
Right?
Well,
That's what.
my son is 39, getting married for the first time.
Hmm.
And 7 weeks before his wedding, he was playing basketball and somebody landed on his foot and broke every bone in his foot. So we
Whoa.
don't know if he's going to even be walking on crutches in a wheelchair for his
Oh
wedding.
my goodness.
And so,
Wow.
but he snapped his Achilles 4 years before that. He's broken his femur. He had tonsillitis with the 3 operations. And he's one of those people. Even bringing him out, they broke the forceps and scarred him. So
Hmm.
he's, always been unlucky with that. And he had long-term relationships. And this ended up being kind of short-term before he knew, right?
Hmm.
And this was finally it because they were both on that journey to seek where they belong, who they are, what more is there in life. And he needed somebody that was on the same journey.
Wow.
And my daughter had her first child at she's got 30, yeah, 33. So she has 2 children now. My other daughter is turning 42, no children at all. She's the butterfly in life. I mean, she's just come back over 10 days, 5 countries.
Wow.
She's one of those type of people. And I had to wait till 66 to become a grandma. And I think it's okay. I'd like to have been a bit younger, but it's okay because they went and lived, they went and explored, they went and traveled. They, didn't just settle. Oh, I
Hmm.
guess I'm 25, I should get married.
Hmm.
There was none of that. My daughter went back to school to get her social degree at 27. And so,
Hmm.
the thing is, this expectation that you've got to have everything done by this date, and then you've got to marry and have the 2.2 kids, and then you've got to retire, then you've got to do that. Let's just pick that all up and throw it out because it doesn't apply anymore. It's
Hmm.
go with your flow of life,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Explore life, be in tuned with life, let life guide you,
Hmm.
be in our senses. How many people actually pay attention to their senses?
Right.
They don't even trust their eyes or their taste or their
Right.
hearing, never
Hmm.
mind the touch and the feel,
Right. It's a
right?
disembodied society.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
so sad to see that.
Hmm. But it's on the rise. It's on
It
the rise.
is. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing what
So,
I'm doing for the life because I was 57 when I found my calling. And I've had a lot of little ones along the way. Everything
uh-huh.
prepared me for this. But
Hmm.
this journey for me started at 57. And it's
Hmm.
the only one that's truly, really meant something to me
Hmm.
because I get to interview people like you who have taken that journey and giving people other permission. It's okay to feel like this.
Hmm.
It's okay to struggle with forgiveness. It's okay to be different. And they
Hmm.
need to hear that because society is telling them not. And you're
Hmm.
telling them it's okay, you're meant to be. You're not meant to fit in a box along with all even the M&Ms are all different colors.
Hmm.
You know? So it's important that we have people like yourself out there sharing this message, and especially that your main platform is forgiveness, because I think people don't seek the open and ready to receive until they do actually come face to face with that forgiveness.
Hmm. Right. It really does remove or dissolve is the word I prefer, burdens from the body.
Mm,
And when those burdens are released or dissolved, then creativity can flow and
yeah.
circulate, and then we can see our souls more clearly when we're
Mm,
not when we don't have some emotional burden that we're carrying with us.
yeah.
I see it almost, and it's interesting because it's almost like these strong emotional times, they're a passageway to the soul.
Mm,
You have to walk the passage. You have to
yes.
go into the corridor. You
Yes. Yes.
can't just avoid it and say you're doomed to feel horrible for the rest of your life. Like if you actually turn towards it and go into the passage, like you find your soul, and your soul's a magical instrument.
That's, the courage and the strength and the abilities,
Right.
right? You only discover those when you
Right.
make the choice to turn right.
Right.
And that's the importance of it, is that nobody's here to fix you. Nobody's here to do it for you. They're here to assist you on your journey. They can
Hmm.
give you the wisdom, the tools, and the skills to apply, but
Hmm.
you've got to be willing to apply it. You've got to be willing to walk that walk. And for everybody that started off with trepidation, I said, don't, the biggest leap is the first step. But once you take that first step and that second step and you pay attention to
Hmm.
all that is around you, the next
Hmm.
thing you're miles ahead, and you look back and go, my God, just look how far I've come.
Hmm.
Why didn't I do this sooner?
Hmm. Right. Right.
But be
Yes.
willing to take the journey, right?
Have to have a courageous heart.
Yes. And I think, what we're looking at the present moment is like, you with the 3 years, you had to face it. I have to face this. I think a lot of people are facing, where is your courage? Where is your courage? Where
Hmm.
is your strength to say no more to this, whatever's going on in their life? There
Hmm.
has to be something more. I want something more. I'm going to seek
Hmm.
that connection. And I think people all reach that limit. And
Hmm.
instead of ignoring it, so many people are adhering to the calling. And then
Hmm.
they just need somebody to share the how.
Hmm. Right. Right. Yeah. So many people want it. That's what I realized after. So once I figured out how to forgive, I thought I had released this huge thing. And at the moment, I was like, whoo, glad I figured that out, onward with my life. I really just thought it was this small thing that I had figured out for myself. And then I started talking to friends and family and colleagues and clients. And I was like, oh, wow, everyone has something they wish they could forgive. Like,
Yes,
and I was like, and everyone feels stuck with this
yes,
thing because, people who identify as spiritual but not religious, um, are very logic based. They really want their spirituality to be practical.
yes, yes.
Right.
I'm so glad you said that, because,
Hmm.
you look at the left, logical or rational. No, the logics in the kindness, compassion, caring, and stepping into love
Uh-huh.
is very rational.
Right, 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 right. They just need it to be more than a written word, or
Mm.
they spiritual but not religious people. I mean, my hand is raised. I'm one of them for sure. We don't want to believe something just because someone told us to believe it.
Yes. Want to feel it,
We
to be
we
it.
yeah, we really need spirituality to walk its talk. We need the
Mm,
rubber to hit the road. We need tangible results.
mm.
We need things to just be very practical. And so yeah. So that was the thing that I saw 2 years post forgiveness. I was like, oh my goodness, all these spiritual but not religious
Mm.
people are stuck. They have something they want to forgive, and there's just no, like, because pardoning, as I said, it's like putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And um, I don't know. I'm a very compassionate person. I couldn't And listen, this isn't another very important thing I want to say. There are people that the pardoning definition 100% works for. There are
Mm,
uh, thousands of stories
mhm,
of people who have pardoned and have released strong burdens through pardoning. And I believe them. I
mhm,
believe that for these people, the pardoning definition works. I'm one of the people, and I think I'm representing a tribe of people
mm,
that it just doesn't work, the pardoning definition. Like, even if I did pardon somebody, I don't see how that would relieve my emotional burden. And I know for a lot of people, that's a very clear, logical connection.
mhm.
For me, it is not. And
It's the
I,
scars, right? The scars that are left behind.
right. There's like something, there's more that needs to be tended to
Hmm, hmm.
than just excusing
Yeah,
somebody's really crappy behavior.
yeah.
Um, and I understand that, pardoning, again, like I have scrutinized these definitions. Like, pardoning, you could say, is the result of an immense amount of compassion. When you have an immense amount of compassion, pardoning is just a very natural result of that.
Yes.
And so pardoning can be shorthand for like have an immense amount of compassion for what happened. And I think that when really big things happen, and really big things happen all
Hmm,
the time to a lot of
hmm.
people, when small things happen or medium things happen, having compassion and pardoning it's okay. It's not that hard, sure, no big deal, honey, that's fine
Yeah.
that happened. But when it's really big and the loss is huge,
Hmm.
it's not easy to drum up massive amounts of compassion in those moments.
It's kind of you want to kind of forgive their action because they didn't know any better. Maybe they did, but you're going to forgive it, but you're not condoning, right? It's like I don't condone the action, but I'll forgive the action because maybe it was done out of stupidity. Sometimes it's done out of malice. How do you forgive that? But I think for me personally, is the scars that it left behind. I may forgive and I
Right.
may have let go, but the scars are still very evident.
So if, the people in my course, it's like I teach people how to use unconditional love in a medicinal way. I teach them how to apply it to circumstances that um, are just really difficult, horrible, unforgivable.
Hmm.
That's a very, very, I teach them how to use unconditional love in that way, but I also teach them how to apply it to the scars,
Yeah. Okay.
because that's where you'll get the most energetic movement or the most
Mhm.
energetic release.
Yes.
And that's actually kind of one of the most critical pieces of the work. I once attended a Universalist church, probably like almost 20 years ago in Seattle. And so, again, I was very spiritual person, always seeking, always curious, always just watching for, spiritual truths that were that yielded practical results. That was essentially, I was just born with the lens to like be seeking
Mhm.
this out. So and I grew up in a home where my mother, she grew up in Catholicism. And so she questioned Catholicism when she was a child, and she was reprimanded for doing so.
Mhm.
So when she had my sister and I, she very much raised us to be seekers. She said,
Mm.
you will figure out your spirituality for yourself. But here I am, this very spiritual little girl, surrounded by all these Catholic aunts and uncles who think my mom is making the biggest mistake ever. And they keep saying, like, get her confirmed, send her to Sunday school, all these messages. And I'm sitting there going, I just want someone to explain to me this like incredible feeling that I have. Like, will
Mhm.
someone, and so if religion's going to explain it to me, then bring it on. Like, I want to know. So the middle way was my mom bought me a children's Bible. This was her compromise. She said,
Mm.
and I think I must have been 9 or 10 when she gave it to me. And she said, here, read this. And it had lots of illustrations and big writing, and it was very thick. And I remember like, yes, someone gave this, someone's giving me the truth. I start reading it. I probably get like 50 pages in, read the creation stories, great, 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 great. And then all of a sudden, God becomes very punitive,
Mhm.
angry,
Mhm.
judgmental, and that
Mhm.
was in complete contrast to this feeling I was born with. And so I remember thinking like, ooh, I'm 9 or 10, like, ooh, I just closed the book. I
Not
said
for
that
me.
that's not my God. That's not the feeling that I have.
Uh-huh.
So, and then I grew up with these aunts and uncles preaching to me here and there and very much preaching forgiveness, but they were so not at peace with themselves. So
Exactly.
it just didn't, nothing added up. Anyway,
Hmm.
I ended up at this Universalist church in my late 30s, and the pastor was a woman, and she started talking about forgiveness. And I remember thinking, whoa, she's going to explain it to me. Oh my goodness, like, this is awesome. And I remember like going to the edge of my seat, like, yes, someone's going to finally explain this thing to me that I've been hearing about my entire life. And she said, all she said this one simple sentence, but it did change my life. She said, forgiveness is to give forth.
Hmm.
Forgiveness, she goes, forgiveness is to give forth. And she goes, and what are you giving forth? You're giving forth that which is greater than you.
Right.
So at the time, I remember thinking, well, that is the most unique thing I've ever heard. Like I've never heard someone describe it
Right.
in this way. And it actually didn't like click for me
Mm.
until 2012. But, once I realized what I realized in 2012, I was like, oh,
Yes.
forgiveness is to give forth.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that sometimes we do hear things or we are introduced to things that we're not quite ready for, but the seed has been planted. And then
Mm-hmm.
when we go further down the road, suddenly it makes sense. So,
Mm-hmm.
do not dismiss things because you don't
Right.
get it in the moment.
Right.
It will be something that will raise its head later. And you go, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
almost a spiritual journey, right?
it
It's like
is. It
we
is.
we don't know until all of a sudden things click and we have to carry these burdens and these teachings until all of a sudden they make sense.
I mean, again, back to we'll know what we need to know when we need to know it,
Right, right,
right? When we're ready to know it, then we know what to do with it.
right.
Right? Because we don't want knowledge for knowledge's sake. We want knowledge that is actionable.
Right,
So, I
right.
mean, it's a hard journey, being the spiritual pioneers, born this way,
Mhm,
and um, because it was a journey where people did look at you differently and treat you differently, and now it has become, we've got there are so many spiritual churches that have opened up that really all they are is religion under a different name.
mhm,
They're still kind of following the old template and
mhm.
calling it spirituality. Even when you are putting things up like shows or anything, they go to genres. You've got religion and spiritual side by side. You can't choose one or the other. They still clump it together,
How old
right?
were you when you owned it? Like when you owned that you were, a spiritual being here to do spiritual work.
But I grew up playing with dead people, with entities. I was seeing people. I couldn't
Hmm.
go through a churchyard without everybody speaking to me. This was all my life. But I became very, very sick at the age of 2. The
Hmm.
Asian flu went round England and I got asthma and eczema, and I was very, very ill. And I've still got asthma. Fortunately, no more eczema.
Hmm.
And I don't know, it just is something that was always there. And I had nobody to tell me what it was or what I was, people would just, raise
Hmm.
their eyebrows, and I missed out of 12 years of schooling, I probably maybe completed 6 or 7. So there
Hmm.
was no expectation of me, and maybe she'll make a good marriage. And that was it.
Hmm.
No, I didn't. But, 3 great children, but no.
Uh-huh.
That was one lesson that was very hard to learn of the
Mhm,
right men in my life, and I haven't been good on that. But that came from unworthiness,
mhm,
right? Settling, thinking this was all that I'm worth,
mhm,
right? And that is purely because nobody saw the spirituality. It was just that she's a weird child.
mhm,
Though, weird or not, they would come to me with their problems. They would
mhm,
come to me for a reading. They would come to me for advice.
mhm,
And I would, be in a music lesson and suddenly turn to my teacher and go, blah, 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 and go, what? Can you repeat that? And I go, no. Can you explain it? No. You
mhm.
just needed
Wow.
to know. And
Mhm,
that's how I operated. I had no understanding of what it is I was spewing. It was
mhm.
just I was that channeler.
Wow. Wow.
So it wasn't something oh, I'm this. I was always this, but I had to get to a point, especially in adulthood, especially when
Uh-huh.
I came to North America, of protecting it,
Mhm,
of being careful who I spoke to about it.
mhm. So when did you finally shake all that off? What, at 57 or before?
Um, a little bit before, after my divorce of 2000, and 5.5 years later, I had another relationship where it was somebody incredibly soul gifted, and my job was to open him up and put him on his path, but was disastrous for me, which seemed to be my pattern. It was to open people up to their meaningful purpose, and then they move on, leave me
Hmm.
in the dust, right? Which is the usual thing. And then kind of having to rediscover myself. And actually, it was through podcasting that I have done that. I was
Hmm.
asked to join somebody's network and do podcasts, and I went, "What's a podcast?" I had no idea back in 2012.
Hmm.
But then I discovered this is something that I love to do, and the people I get to meet, and the forward thinking, the spiritual thinking, the people that really do care. These are the people that are going to shift us forward. And I
Hmm.
knew I had to create a platform for it.
Hmm.
So it became very much my awakening of my meaningful purpose, honed in a
Hmm.
direction that really became logical and rational.
Hmm. Okay.
Just like you with the forgiveness, it became your platform.
So wow, so you spend the great majority of your life kind of just keeping
Hiding.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
intense.
It is. And it's still, I've still got, I've got people obviously that I interview, especially when we know that we're going to be talking about it and I can be that freedom. I've still got to be careful with other people out there because this is what I said about the universe giving me an illness to dampen my energy. Even my energy around other people
Hmm.
can be too much for people because
Hmm.
my spiritual energy sometimes can just, take flight. And I understand why I was given the illness I was given was to keep it at a level that wouldn't frighten people.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
when I'm with people that are 100% spiritual and I can be myself and open up those gates, yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, that's so amazing that you found this.
Yes, but have you found those restrictions, or is it because you are actually coming at it from an adaptable process, a how process, that it makes it easier for people to travel that path? Because you are talking and emphasizing the how to rather than from the other side of it.
Right. So, I mean, I live half time in New York and I live half time in Boulder, Colorado. And Boulder's a pretty spiritual, groovy
Mm,
city. And there are a lot of left brain folks in
mm,
Boulder. But it's interesting, if you're at a coffee shop and you listen to the conversations
mm,
that are happening all around you, you will hear, astrology,
mm,
psychology,
mm,
philosophy,
mm.
Buddhism, and it's
Yep.
really like fun to just be like,
Yes,
oh wow, I'm
yes,
around the right
yeah,
people. So like the western part of the United States is definitely more groovy, but
yeah.
New York is actually very groovy. I'm just not really tapped into the community here. So you know, but I also know that there's a lot of people who just, let's put it this way. I think I'm surprised by, hmm, I can only say this in the later part of my life,
Hmm.
that I really feel like people are starved for soul conversations.
Yes.
And people like you and I, it's like we only speak soul, right? Like there's no other language that we
No.
even speak. Like I so I actually find especially with this day and age, I think the
Mm,
digital age while it's enhanced spirituality like this, like
mm,
we can have a podcast conversation that's going to be listened to by
mm,
other people, and so that's enhancing the whole thing. I think there's something about the digital age that also has removed people from it, because when they come across soulful conversations, they're really all for it. They really want
mm.
a deeper
They're
conversation.
hungry.
They want a deeper conversation.
Hmm.
So where are you? Where are you? Do you live right now?
I'm on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada.
Oh, okay, yeah. So what is your sense of spirituality out there? That's a,
Well, I live on the island, which is the land itself is very spiritual. It's
yes.
it's people that come here come more for a laid back life. Victoria's is getting more and more high risey and
Yeah.
condensed and going city.
Uh-huh.
I've just moved to Nanaimo because my daughter lives here. My grandbabies are here. I
Mm-hmm.
literally have a monkey puzzle tree. I have green belt all around me. The deer come into
Wow.
my garden,
Wow.
but I'm 5 minutes from anything, right?
Wow.
So,
That's
and I've
very,
got water all around me. But the people here are just more laid back, more nature orientated, more casual, and an awful lot of spiritual programs are running through the island because the island itself supports it.
wonderful.
So I came here 6.5 years ago,
Okay.
and from the mainland. And I
Uh-huh.
knew I couldn't live in the mainland anymore because it was becoming too static. And I couldn't live in that energy anymore. And
Were
so
you were in Vancouver?
I was in Vancouver and all around Vancouver. I moved
Okay.
all
Okay.
around. My daughter lives in Vancouver. My son lives in the outskirts, Maple Ridge. And
Uh-huh.
when I go over, it's wonderful to see everyone. And I get on that ferry to come home. And not
Mm-hmm.
only I'm on a body of water, and if it's
Mm-hmm.
sunny, I could sit outside and the wind running through my hair, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
going home. And like
Mm-hmm.
coming home is that, what I've been asking for. My children bought me this place so that I could be close to them and close to the grandchildren. Um, because when you're highly spiritual, you're not really great with finances. So they bought me this place. And it's all I've asked the universe was give me a place that I feel is my sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my sanctuary. I come home to it and I feel it supports me
Mm-hmm.
and it's got me. And it's taken me a long time to find that because I've been, in a lot of ways, I'm sure you have too, a lot of our spiritual practice is to be a disruptor. We have to kind of disrupt people and where they're at and their thinking and their approach to life for them to shift and go in a different direction. But that
Mm-hmm.
can be quite exhausting.
Mm-hmm. So you rein it in now?
Yes, I'm less of a disruptor now. More of the promoter, the advocator, the
Mm-hmm.
supporter now. So less of that. My world has become a lot smaller.
Mm-hmm.
My grandkids, my children, two or three friends, and my work. And my work is very important to me because it doesn't feel like work. I feel this is my calling to
Mm-hmm.
make sure I get people like you out there. That
Mm-hmm.
somebody, and people say, who listens to your shows? And I go, all those that are ready to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot dictate who's going to listen or how many people are going to listen or what they're going to do with it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
sent out with love.
Mm-hmm.
And those that are ready to hear it
Mm-hmm.
will hear it
Mm-hmm.
and they'll know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the importance of it, is
Mm-hmm.
being there, the library of information, of wisdom for
Mm-hmm.
when people are ready. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all we can do sometimes is plant the seeds. And
Wonderful.
and
Yeah.
then sometimes we're really there when somebody is ready. So
Yeah.
having said that, for you, when somebody's ready and they've heard you and they resonate with you and they, one way or the other, whether it's forgiveness or they're wanting to tap into their soul, what is your process in helping them navigate this path?
Yeah, so I teach a 6-week course called How to Forgive. I teach it 4 times a year, once every season. Um, and the next course is September 15th, and then there'll be one again in January. And and I teach them basically, it's like learning a language.
Mm,
You have to learn how to pronounce the vowels. You need to know how to the basic verbs and how to conjugate those verbs and the articles, and you layer all these pieces on. And I teach this course with, I really want people to see and experience I say that we're all anatomically designed to forgive. So I really want people to have a very strong experience of that. I
mm,
want them to graduate the course and be like, wow, I got this. Like
mm.
should obstacles come before me, and they will.
Yes, they will.
I have this incredible skill, to move forward. And yeah, so I really want people to graduate and feel confident. So we just layer on, the first step is, how to embody unconditional love. The second step is how to apply unconditional love. And then, the third step is how to circulate energy in the body so that the unconditional love
Mm,
can penetrate. And then the fourth and fifth steps are how to identify those very specific things that actually need it. And they can be things about the circumstance that happened, or they can be things about how the circumstance affected you. But again, we all are anatomically designed to be able to recognize those. They're right there.
Yes.
People don't, again, we grow up in a society that's like logic, science, math,
Yes.
jobs, career, make money, make money, make money, make money. That's how you survive. That's how
And
you,
don't
you know,
rock the boat. Don't do something different. Follow
right,
the norm.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I'm teaching, the right hemisphere of the brain does incredible things. But it's also responsible for our ability to heal.
Mm,
And it's not a part of the brain that's highly developed in a capitalistic society.
yeah.
So I want people to have a very strong front row seat of this incredible part of their
Hmm.
cerebral of
Yes.
head,
Yes.
and all these incredible things that it can do. So
I
that's
like
what
your approach is stepping into that love first, then addressing the forgiveness rather instead of going straight to the problem. You're bit stepping into the self-love to look at the problem.
Right. I actually think that, I don't like, there's a big movement right now of to feel your feelings.
Yeah.
Feel your feelings, feel your feelings. And yes, I think the emotional realm is an incredibly important aspect of the
Yes.
human experience. But I also feel like telling somebody to just feel your feelings is like telling someone to say, jump in the pool and swim. you People need to know how to swim, right?
Yes.
You can't just
Yes.
jump into the pool and swim. You can't
Excuse me, I'm drowning.
throw somebody into water, right?
No.
And
Mm.
so one of the reasons why substances are so
Yeah.
popular and such
Mm. Hmm.
a successful industry is because people don't know how to swim.
Exactly.
People don't know how to feel their feelings.
Yeah.
So I really, even though I know that the people who are saying this are pointing humanity in the right direction, because
Hmm.
avoidance is going to cause
Yes.
an immense amount of issues as well. Um, to just tell somebody to feel their feelings, just
Without without the life jacket.
yeah, right. And so I feel like when we have an embodied sense of unconditional love,
Mm.
that provides us a tool, or a buffer, so that we can go into it, we can go into our emotional realm, and we're not just being overwhelmed by strong feelings. Like
Exactly. We're
we
not
actually
becoming
have,
emotional, right?
yeah, we actually have a cloak, right?
Yes.
And or a protective cloak. And so yeah, it's very unconditional love is this thing it's kind of this elephant in the room. It's sitting right before
Mm.
all of us, but there's so many practical medicinal ways it can be used. And it's,
Yes.
as I said, like it's a substance. It is a drug,
Yes. It's a
and
divine drug, a
the
divine energy, a divine
divine
wisdom,
drug, right?
right?
It's
It's a healthy
free.
one
It's free,
and it's
yeah.
fortifying.
It's on demand,
Yes.
It's right there at all times. So yeah, part of my mission is I just want people to know how to use this drug.
Right. And the thing is that what most people feel? I'm unworthy, nobody cares, I'm alone. And that is a common theme with so many people. I don't count. And when you do tap into the unconditional love and you tap into the soul wisdom, you're never alone. You're
Right,
always supported,
right,
right? You're always loved. You
right,
are enough. And
right,
they're going to give you the vision and the ability and the tools to become even more of what you are.
right. Exactly, right. It gives you a sense of belonging, which is
Yes.
something that so many people
Hmm.
lack today. Um, and yeah, everything you just said, I completely agree.
It is all possible. It is all accessible. It doesn't have to take, it doesn't have to be painful. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. But are you comfortable in your pain, in your anguish, in your, disconnect? Are you comfortable in your anger and your fear?
Hmm.
And so many people have just become so comfortable in that because it's all they know. But it's like, get uncomfortable. It's so that you can,
Right?
taste
You
something
know,
else.
it's a passageway,
Yes.
and it's not this strong emotions are not here to just torture us for
No.
they're not just this thing that we have to, this is another, piece again, because emotional intelligence is becoming more popular, and I'm
Hmm.
so excited about that, but I don't like the words coping, managing,
Hmm.
enduring, like, again, because I feel like, no, the emotional realm is so much more wonderful and magical than that,
Yes.
like that, as I
It's light and breathable, right? It's
Well,
it's
I almost feel like it's one of the most profound ambassadors of the soul, as we were
yeah,
talking about,
yeah,
And so if you want to know your soul, you need to know your emotions.
yeah.
So, when I know that people are trying to prevent people from being triggered and having strong emotional reactions, and people, and becoming more emotionally aware. So I know the coping, managing, I know those words are actually, again, moving humanity in the right direction, but I also feel like they make emotions this like scary,
Too much.
they pathologize them, they
Yeah.
make like negative, scary thing that
Mm,
we're all just stuck with. And the only reason they exist is to get our basic needs met when we're young children. And it's no, it's way cooler and interesting
mm.
and spiritual than that. So
I know,
that's
and also
yeah.
whatever, emotion comes up. So many people just do not know how to have joy in their life, and that's because all these other emotions have taken over. And I think a lot of people, when they choose this other path, they begin to see joy in the most beautiful, simple things. A child's smile, puppy dog chasing a stick, right?
Mhm.
Laughter, a
Right.
smile shared with someone.
Yeah. It's a
And there's
great
so
example
much
of
that it
it.
brings out in the joy. It doesn't mean you're not going to have, dark days of the soul, but what it does mean is the soul's got you and you won't go down the rabbit hole. You
Right.
won't go down despair. You won't get lost like you may have in the past. It's like you're having a bad day. We're going to shut you down from anything exterior and we're just going to hug you from the inside out
Hmm.
and allow and surrender because we got you because the human experience is still going to take you through the ups and downs of life. But we
Right.
don't want to get to the downs where we lose ourselves. We want to get to the downs, okay, this means nurture and love myself so I
Mhm.
can spring back up.
Right. Yes, and it reveals intuition
Yes.
also. And so it's like like you with the podcast, it's like
Hmm.
then like where and how to direct the energy, right?
Yes.
I think that's all like that's what this there's so many byproducts to forgiveness, like, in addition to the fact that it dissolves emotional burdens, and it liberates the heart, and it creates a sense of inner peace. Like that's, baseline what we all want, but it also reveals intuition. It also gives us greater access to joy. Like there's just so many byproducts to being able to, as I said, like use this thing that we all have access to in a very practical way.
Plus, it feels so good.
And it's a drug.
And it's not a drug that's going to have you on the happy high and you're going to crash. The
Right.
beautiful thing about it, it's not a high and a low. It is a round and an embrace,
Hmm.
right? It's traveling those wonderful waves of energy and water and life and it's just like, right? And it's you can have a peak, but it's not going to tilt you off.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. We've been taught that we need to have these great heights. But with the
Mhm.
great heights come the great lows. No, how about we just ride the wave and the fluidity? That's why I love interviewing musicians. They're
Mhm.
already in their soul truth. It comes
Yeah.
out, they are the music, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Like when they
Definitely.
play something, their heart and soul is in it, and that's what
Right.
you feel. And it's like,
Hmm.
candy
Yes.
for the heart and soul. Absolutely.
Right. It's a sustainable drug.
Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. And
Hmm.
not only that, you cannot help but share it. You cannot help but by projecting that energy out in order for others to experience it. You become it. It's not what you're doing, it's who you're being. And the
Hmm.
essence of you will resonate and ripple out that other people will benefit around you, even though they don't know.
Right. Right, right. Yes, it has an immense resonance, and it helps uplift everybody. It's yeah, it's amazing for relationships. It's amazing for high vibe relationships. Yeah.
Exactly. So, people want to join the course. How do they do that? How do they get hold of you? What are your social medias? You said the next one is
Yeah.
the 15th of September. Are you full? Are you
No, there's
taking?
space available for the 15th of December. And so if anyone wants to take this ride, I would love to guide them through it. Registration closes September 12th, and September 15th, the course embarks. And it ends October 24th. And I tell
Sounds
people,
perfect.
I mean, there's a lot of information on the site about like if you're ready, to take the course or not. The more time and space you have in your life, that's definitely an asset. Like I think it's definitely a difficult course, so you're not going to get the most bang for your buck if you are in
Not
a
participating.
huge project
Yeah.
happening or your life is extremely busy. And then if for that course doesn't work, the next one happens in January and they happen every 4 months. I send out reminders. You can sign up for my email. I'm on Instagram. I don't really, podcasting is how I get the word out about the
Hmm.
course. I don't have an Instagram channel. That's not my jam. But I'm at daramckinley.com. I call it my digital inspirational business card.
Hmm.
So you can go to @daramckinley.com, and then I'm also on Facebook.
Right. And of course, you have howtoforgive.com as well. Is that where
Howtoforgive.com.
people will sign up for the course?
Right.
Okay. And Dara McKinney, I'm going to spell it for the people that are listening. DARAMCKINLEY.com. DaraMcKinley.com. And you can reach out to you at Dara@howtoforgive.com, your Facebook, Dara McKinney 108. You're on Twitter, Dara McKinley, and Instagram. You are
Yeah,
there.
I'm not
Um,
on Twitter, so I
sorry?
don't know. I'm not on Twitter, so yeah, don't
Oh,
don't.
well,
Yeah,
it's funny because
that's
that's what
that's
was
an
sent to
error.
me.
Yeah, I'll get
Okay.
that fixed. I'll get that fixed.
Okay. And the thing is until they're willing to actually have a conversation with you and find out if it's a right fit. And again, as you said, how you promote this is through podcasting, because in podcasting, people have heard you, they feel you, they
Right,
either resonate or they don't with you. But if they
right,
reach out to you, it's because they have heard you and they feel that you're speaking to something they need to address.
right,
And that, becomes the calling card. So then it is, are you the right fit? And as you said, if you're not willing to participate and go through the program, it's not going to benefit you. So make sure that you do have space and time in order to immerse yourself into it. Because so many people want the downloadable app, give me a pill, just do something quick. No, you've got into this mess over how many years? It's going to take a little time to unravel and reprogram. And
well,
so
yeah, it's
give
gonna
it the
take some
time.
time to just develop the skills,
Yes.
and
And
to
skills
become
that you'll
proficient
use for the rest of your life
at
and
skills
everything.
that you will use for the
Yes,
rest of your life. Yes. And
exactly.
I go down the forgiveness path. When I teach the course, I actually do the course myself.
Hmm.
So that's like how amazing it is. Like I can't wait for September.
Hmm. And there's always something to forgive, even if it's not something that's hit you personally. Maybe it's something going on in the political environment, or
Yeah,
it's like
I
something you
say
need to forgive because it's having an effect on you.
right. It's whatever's bothering you the
Yeah.
most.
Yes.
And it's our bodies that tell us that there's something that we need to forgive.
Yeah.
It's wherever you're experiencing chronic stress in your body,
Yeah.
like that's how you know, oh, okay, there's something I need to address here. My body's trying to get my attention.
Yes. I'm
Okay.
gritting my teeth and tightening up. Maybe I need to address this.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
we want you to feel relaxed. I've got this. It hasn't got me. And
Right.
that's the main objective of it.
So
So
thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
thank you for coming and sharing. I'm delighted that you have, and that you have openly and willingly taken this journey, because yes, it's not an easy journey as a spiritual being, but at the same time, this is exactly the reason why you were chosen to take this journey and
Thank
to
you.
be there for people, because people are more and more working up. Okay, I'm beginning to feel it. I'm beginning to understand, but I don't know what is quite happening to me, or what am I going to do with it? How do I use this? And
Mm-hmm.
that's that we need people who are going to help people to know how to incorporate it into their everyday life and
Hmm.
let it be something that is that source of support.
Yes.
So even though you're doing forgiveness here, it's valuable tools that you're going to learn that can help you in all other aspects of your life. So
Right.
thank you so much, Dara.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation, and
Me
thank you
too.
for taking your journey and promoting everybody and and following your soul.
Well, it's a game when you allow, you just keep on going. Even
Mhm,
when the obstacles come out, but the feeling I've got to keep doing it, trust
mhm.
it. Just you will find a way, right? You will find a
Right,
way.
right.
So until next time, folks, may you find your way to forgiveness and to skills and tools that are going to help you go through life, embracing your soul's wisdom, embracing your heart generator, and allowing your spirit's action and your mind clarity. I wish this for all of you. Reach out to Dara and take the first step. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.